Hey guys, sorry I can't be there at the meeting today. We had a delay in closing, so now my closing is scheduled to be right at the time that our ALC meeting is. But I still wanted to give you guys the book report that was due a couple of months back for the MREI, covering pages 75 through 122, and it is the Think a Million section of the book. And so I'm going to try to go through it, hopefully go through it quickly, because I did a whole class on this not too long at Keller Williams Central, and it took 30 minutes to do it then, so hopefully it won't take that long here, because I'm just going to hit the high points. So initially he starts off talking about how thinking a million in real estate investing is a spiritual journey. And there's a quote here at the bottom of page 75 where it says, "What you may not realize is that every time you open your wallet, endorse a check, or sign a credit card receipt, you're making a statement about your spiritual values. In other words, money spent is a personal testament. The receipts, absolute proof of your priorities." So your money is where your mouth is, where you say you believe, or what you think that you say you believe, can actually be traced back to your receipts. Look at where you're spending your money. And he goes on to talk about that that's not a good or a bad thing. It's not necessarily something that you're doing just to kind of keep track. And I'm trying not to go too much on a tangent of the spiritual connection that there is with money and where your values are and things like that. But the point of what he's saying is that ultimately, money is good for the good that it can do. And that's going to bleed into the 7 ways that millionaire real estate investors think. And the first way is to be powered by a big why. And the reason that that's connected to this other part is where you're coming from, your motivation in investing or in work, in sales, whatever your motivation is to get the money, that's going to really power how you go about doing things. So he says that it takes just as much time to think small as it does to think big. So when we say be powered by a big why, we're talking big. Right? So why do we get up in the morning? Why are you making phone calls? Why are you taking care of people? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? And what I would encourage you is you go on page 81, and it has this part here where it says, I want the largest life possible. And it continues on into all these different breakdowns of, well, why? And why? And it gets frustrating at times to ask yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? But I would encourage you to dig and dig deep. Keep asking. So why do I want to make $1 million in real estate investments? Well, that's going to help me to be able to be generous. Okay, well, why do I want to be generous? Because that's in my heart. Okay, well, why is that in my heart? Because it's who God made me to be. Okay, well then why do you believe that that's who God made you to be? Well, because that's my purpose here on earth. And every time that you keep asking why, you dig a little bit deeper, and it can really get to a place where you go, man, that's it. That's why I want to do what I'm doing every single day, so that when things get tough and things get hard, you can still get up and keep pushing and go forward. So that's number 1, is to be powered by a big why. Number 2 is to think big goals, big models, and big habits. So we had goals when we were younger, and you have goals as you continue to grow in life. And I'm seeing this change even right now by bringing in, we've got a 1-year-old now in our lives, and the goal initially when I was younger was, okay, well, I want to have a wife and I want to have a family, and and each of these things goes with time. Your goals end up getting bigger and bigger. And he's saying, okay, the model of what you did to get that goal initially was smaller, but as you grow, you have to have bigger models. You have to have bigger goals, and those things will continue to exponentially go. And in return, or not in return, but to get there, you have to have bigger habits. So that's broken down on page 84, if you check that out. He looks at the net worth, right? So the things that we do where we have a net worth at 75,000 or 100,000 is going to be different from the things we got to do to maintain a lifestyle and to grow at 200,000. 300,000, 500,000. Just in the same way in your real estate business, where you know that, hey, when I'm making 100,000, here are the things that I got to do. I got to do X amount of phone calls to get Y amount of results, right? So when you do that at 100,000, in order to make 500,000 or 700,000, the models change, the habits have to change, and the same thing is true for investing in real estate, that the things that we do when you have 5 rental properties versus 25 rental properties are going to be different. So that's number 2, to think with the big goals, big models, big habits. Number 3 is to think that money matters. Sometimes we get flippant with our money and we get into an area where we're just consuming, meaning that the more comes in, the more goes out, right? Well, the whole idea behind investing is to put your money to work, to not always be consuming, right? So when on page 89, there's a graph here, and it says that when we are in consumption mode, when we are consuming, we are the ones working for the money. But when you go into investment mode, when you go into in the matrix, now taking the money that you've earned and putting it to work to make more money, now you've gone from someone who is consuming to someone who's investing. And we got to get a hold of that matrix and be able to say, I want to go from someone who's consuming to someone who's investing, because that's what people do who are wealthy and have the real estate investments working for them. So to go from just consumption to investing and making the money work for us, not us working for the money. Okay, so that was number 3. Number 4, as I can go ahead and get there here in a second, is it flows from that matrix into now you got to get your mindset around thinking about your net worth. Well, what's our net worth? We've talked about this before. You've probably done exercises with your accountants and other people who give you advice. But your net worth is basically taking all of your assets, right? So everything that you own, he's got a list, a small list here on page 95, your stocks, your bonds, your real estate, your furniture, the car, if you have paid it off. If not, you know how much you have positive versus how much you have negative. So you take all of the positives that you have, and then you subtract all of the liabilities, all of the debts. Once you subtract all of that, you have your final net worth. And he says that he turned this into a game. He turned it into a scorecard. And the idea behind that is to make that number grow, to get ahead in the game. And once you start focusing on the net worth and not just on the income, now you're watching your assets grow and seeing that money have the ability to make more money. You see a pattern here, getting that mindset to go from someone who is consuming to someone who is watching things grow, because it has the capability, so that now you're living within your means and watching the excess become more for the good that it can do, because you're powered by the big why. It all works together. It's pretty cool. So number 5, he says, way that MREI people think is to think real estate. Now, we're in real estate sales. We tell people all the time with their homes and tell them this is one of the biggest transactions that you'll probably ever work with. And on page 99, he gives 8 reasons as to why real estate is the thing to invest in. And if you want to go through that, it's really good information. One of the things that I like about it is that it is something that almost everyone can have access to. When I say that, it's because you have FHA loans, and we help first-time home buyers get into these all the time. 3.5% down, a decent-sized house, a decent home that's not too big, not too small, an entry starter home. And if you can get in there and at that price today, well, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, that same home can be rented out when that family's ready to move, and there's equity, there's appreciation, right? So you're seeing all of these things develop while you're paying into your mortgage. And for the investor, if you're just starting out, and that's what I was getting at, is that this is an entry-level investment opportunity, because that is your home. But then when you leave, if you're able to rent that place out and go somewhere else, now that place is becoming a source of income. And so I always encourage, when I talk to people who are looking to upgrade, I'm like, well, let's look at your finances first and see if you're capable of renting this one out so that you can go to the next one and start accumulating homes. And sometimes they go for it, sometimes they don't. Some people don't like to think that way, but we're trying to think that way. Okay, so That was number 5. Number 6, if you give me a second, I'll get there. He says to think value, opportunity, and deals. So we're good at knowing value, or I hope you're good at knowing value, especially in the neighborhoods that you specialize in. And what he means by knowing value is that, let's just throw numbers out there for just easy sake, right? If you know something goes for $200 a square foot or $100 a square foot, and that's the average in the neighborhood. Well, when you see value, you say, okay, this place is for sale at $90 a square foot. $80 a square foot. You're going, whoa, that's different than all of the average here. There's value. But knowing the value is just part of it, right? Because now you have to, well, now you're finding the opportunity, right? So you know the value because of what's in your head, and then you seek out the opportunities, and then you have to follow through with it and make deals. And making deals leads to the final part here in number 7 on how to think like a MREI, and that's to think action. Because you can make a deal, you can negotiate it, but until you're pulling the trigger and actually moving forward and taking action, then everything else that you're thinking about, your big power, your big why, and being powered by all that stuff, doesn't mean anything. So you have to be ready to take action. And I love how he has this set up on page 114. He has the different types of people who say they're investors, right? So you have the investor who, this is the ultimate one that you want to be. The investor loves opportunity and then buys the right thing. He times everything out and makes a decision. Then you have the collector. The collector just loves owning things. He wants to buy something for the sake of having it because it's part of a collection. So whether it's a $50,000 home or a $500,000 home, it's not really in it to make money, so to speak, knowing that they're each going to make a little bit, but it's more about collecting and having a collection of things. But then you've got the speculator, the one who loves to see action and will buy anything. Give me whatever it is. I just want to see something happen because they're the ones kind of betting on things, right? And then you have the observer. The observer loves ideas, loves talking about ideas, but doesn't buy anything. And sometimes you've worked with people like that, and sometimes you've been that person where you're like, hey, I see the things happening, I see the opportunities, but never actually making a decision and moving forward. So ultimately, you want to move out of being an observer. You don't necessarily want to speculate because that's kind of like a form of gambling with a lot of risk. And then collecting, if that suits you, then great, but you got to be in a financial place in order to do that. But ultimately, the investor is the one who's being wise with their money and trying to take the risk out of things because they know the value, they found the opportunity, and now they're going to move forward, making that deal and thinking with action. So he wraps up on page 119 with what's called Nina's posture rule, and he talks about his personal trainer who taught him about just tweaking things a little bit. Now, making sure that you are putting yourself in a position that is for the most benefit. So in the same way when you work out and you're doing curls, if you do things just off a little bit, then you can injure yourself. Well, in the same way with investing in real estate and investing in other things, if you do things off just that's not right, you can lose money. But at the same time, if you do things and tweak it just a little bit and do things correctly, then you can have the opportunity to really benefit yourself, benefit your family, and make money. So again, this is all under the pretense of knowing that this is a spiritual journey. That's what he started out with, and he wants us to know that, hey, as you're moving through this, it's the mindset and being able to see money do the good that it is there to do, the possibilities that are endless. So yeah, I hope this was beneficial and you guys are able to watch the whole thing. I'm going to wrap it up. Yep, took 15 minutes. So enjoy the rest of the meeting and I'll talk to y'all later.